This video is to go over one of the ways that you could use Desmos to check your answers for a domain or range problem. And I'm going to model this with a square root function. So I have f of x is equal to negative square root of x plus 4 plus 3. And we can see the graph for that function here. There is an endpoint on that function up here at -4, 3. The endpoint, you can tell, is shaded, so that is included. That's important to note when you're looking for your domain and range. Now, this strategy is a way of kind of checking an answer. It might be useful on a multiple choice test if you have access to this, but it's really more to verify whether or not you're on the right track with your domain and range. And it does require that you know what domain and range are. So if you are totally like in the dark about what that vocabulary means, then you still need to know that. It'll never get you out of knowing some math here. So looking at domain, we know are all of the possible x coordinates. And if I hover over the graph, you can, if you look at the x coordinate right there, it's like 2.05, 0.49, -1.17. Those are all x values that are included in the domain. And so what we want to notice is that the x coordinates do seem to be going off to the right, meaning the x coordinates in the domain are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, let's say you're just not sure. And so you try typing in x is greater than, okay, we've established it's greater than, and you see a 4. 4 is in the equation. You're like, x is greater than 4. So what happens there is that you do see this shading, okay? But there's a couple of things that we don't like about it. One is I'm dealing with a dashed line, and we have already established that the point -4, 3 is included. So I wouldn't want a dashed line. That would mean it was not included. The other thing is that this line is clearly in the wrong spot because the domain needs to encompass all of the x values, and all of these x values over here are not in the shaded region, so they have not been included. Now, if you get here, hopefully you'll start to think, oh, wait a minute, that endpoint is at the -4. Maybe I should use a -4 instead of a +4. So if we come over here and change the +4 to -4, now I can see that my domain is like it's in the right spot. So everything is covered in the shaded region except for the endpoint. The endpoint needs to be included, and it's sitting on that dashed line, which is not included. The way we can solve that is by, instead of saying x is greater than, we would say x is greater than or equal to. Now I have a solid line, and that solid line covers the endpoint, and the shaded region covers the entire function. So I am confident now that the domain of this function is x is greater than or equal to -4. We can do the same thing with range. Range, of course, is all of our possible y values. And if you look at your function, you can see that the y values seem to start at the 3. It's a little bit hard now. I've got other stuff going on in there, so it's going to hop functions. But it starts at the 3, and then they go down from there. So now my y value is 1.38. Now I'm on my wrong function there. There we go. There we go. We got that highlighted. So 2.01 and 1.67, and the y values are going down. So we'll start with y is less than, and it should be less than or equal to because that endpoint is included. And it appears that 3 is the number in question. And if I look at that, you can see that I've got the entire function covered in the red region, and the endpoint seems to be where we want it to be. If you have the correct domain and range, then your two shaded regions should intersect at the endpoint, and both regions should encompass the entire function, so you don't have any of the function hanging out like I did in that first example. Now, this will work fine if you can give your answers in inequality notation with x or y is greater than, less than, whatever that is. But it doesn't recognize interval notation. So you might need to take those expressions and then change them over to interval notation. Desmos does not recognize that, but your domain would start at the -4 and then go greater than, go off to infinity. Your range would start at -infinity because it's heading down and stop when you got up to the 3. And that would maybe be a lesson for another time. But this is how you can use Desmos to check your answers on domain and range.